What's up, guys? My name is Isaac Poti, and I'm the host of the Tales from the Tailboard Podcast, a podcast meant for all responders, from those defending our nation in the military to those serving domestically in every state, dispatch, police, fire, EMS, and even the hospital you just transferred care to. Pull in close for a no bullshit episode, and welcome to the show.
Warning. The opinions expressed in this content are those of the host and its guests.
Services allow that.
Doing paramedic AF.
Every car with a ballistic shield.
Things the fire service can't stand. Here, same day, create a new account. Got
fast here. Like they're amazing.
Today's guest is Captain Ben Hammond. Ben is a husband of 22 years, father of 4 boys, and a leader who's dedicated his life to service. As a truck company captain, a local 34 rep, and the chief of his hometown fire department, he came into the service or fire service later in life, built his rookie year from the ground up, and has since become a voice for leadership, culture, and mental health in the fire service. He's got stories with humor, stories that hit hard, and experiences that have shaped the way he leads today. Ben, welcome to the show, and it's good to have you.
Hey, I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the invite. I've enjoyed your podcast to this point, so I'm glad to be here.
I appreciate you, sir. So, not getting into the questions just quite yet. What made you want to start in fire? I mean, just like essentially like you owned a company, and I guess these are part of the questions, but you owned a company and now you wanted to join fire at such a late age. I had talked to somebody just before I got on here for you and said that, people that are integrated in their life now are not going to leave their career to join a completely separate career like the fire service. We have to reach the ones that don't have a job yet, the ones that have not cemented themselves in a career. So why, after you've cemented yourself into your own business, did you choose to leave and start fire?
Well, I'll tell you, it goes back to when my wife and I finally decided, where we wanted to settle down, right, and raise our family. It was essentially her hometown, and I was kind of adopted in there. And, we looked at different ways to get involved in the community. And it's really as simple as one day I see this volunteer fire truck come by our house, and he's got his lights and sirens on. And I was like, man, that's cool shit, right? I got to get me some of that action. So I ended up like following the guy and to the volunteer fire department and said, what is this about and how do I get involved, and so they brought me in and started to teach me, and I started to understand what the fire service was and what service to the community looked like from that aspect. And the more I trained and the more I got involved in things, someone presented it to me and said, why don't you sign up and take a test and join a career fire department? And it was a hard decision at the time, but I thought, man, let's do this. And that's how it led into that, and I've told this story a couple of times, and I don't want to get too far ahead of the questions, if this comes later, but on the day that the career fire department called me and offered me the job, I was headed home from the northwest part of our state where my boss at the time offered me a promotion, offered to, for me to run an entire office. And so it was a pretty challenging, decision as far as where do I go, which career do I follow? And ultimately, we talked about it and prayed about it and said, let's give this a shot.
Good. Faithful man, I appreciate that as well. There's a faith that's kind of lost along a part of us, and those that still have it or those that choose to get into it is pretty good. I mean, it's needed in the fire service for sure. So why fire? Why not police? Why not EMS? Why not military?
Well, I actually thought about the military when I was younger, right out of high school, but it just didn't seem right for me, even though I come from a line of military personnel. My grandfather retired from the Air Force. My father was in the Air Force, but at the time it just wasn't right for me. And so once I got out of college and started working in the fire alarm and fire protection business, I learned the value of fires and emergencies and how much they affect people's lives. And so naturally working amongst the fire department in that business from time to time, that's what, led me to that. Plus, Fire trucks are way more cool than police officer cars.
Isn't that true? So that being said, you volunteered, you kind of got on. What was the one incident that, because I have mine and I'm sure you have yours. What's one incident that cemented it for you and said, yep, this is it?
Well, I don't know that it was an incident as much as it was a person. Um, One day, if I ever get the chance to write a book about my life, the chapters are just going to be titled from the people who have influenced my life from the time I was a kid. And my mentors in the fire service, both the chief of the volunteer fire department at that time and then some other instructors that I had met along the way, those are people that I looked up to. And if I was in trouble, I could call and ask them questions about the fire service or questions about my personal life. And they were always there to help me. So it wasn't necessarily one event, but the people that were around me, when they approached the topic and said, hey, you should do this full time. You have a passion for it. We need people that are dedicated in the fire service, and you've got a little bit of experience under your belt. So when those people talked, I listened and started looking at those opportunities.
Did you ever see yourself going further beyond that? Like you say, you're an EMT. Do you have a want to be a paramedic? Do you have you ever thought about maybe being a nurse?
No. While that side of the EMS field is extremely important, being an EMT is something obviously that's a big part of the fire department because of the type of runs that we make. I never really wanted to go any further in that area simply because that's just kind of something you have to dedicate to and you have to dig down and get involved in. And I guess at some point in time and at some age in your life, kind of got to stop taking on new things. So,
Yeah.
And, when I got in the fire service, I didn't know that EMS was a part of it. And when I say EMS, I mean medical response and things like that. I didn't know that was a part of it. And then once I started learning that, got involved in our rescue unit here in our county. And then obviously when I went to full time, it was a big part of it. But firefighting is still the cool part. Firefighting is still the part that, thrills me. But obviously the medical side is important, but I never really thought about carrying it any further than that.
Yeah. And, some people are just happy with where they're at.
Yeah.
Okay, so into the meat and potatoes of the questions here. You started your fire career at 32 after already having leadership experience in another industry. How did coming in as an older rookie shape your mindset, your humility, and the way you approached the firehouse hierarchy?
Well, it was kind of twofold, really. Number one, coming in at such an older age, and then coming from the background I was in, where I was in a leadership role and a supervisor role, it'll kind of humble you coming in at the bottom of the totem pole, and as the guy who doesn't know anything, and the guy who has to clean the shitters, and the guy who has to mop the floors, and it'll humble you. But at the same time, because of that experience and because of my age, I was mature enough to understand that that was part of the job, and you have to earn your keep. And you have to move up in the ranks. In the fire alarm business, where I started my career when I was 20 years old, I started as an apprentice. As an apprentice, you picked up the trash and you learned how to strip the wires, and you did the grunt work that no one else, wanted to do because they'd earned their time. Mm-hmm. And then you move up in that career as well to where you're running the projects and you're the lead. And then, you move into a supervisor role. And so I understood that. So on one hand, it'll humble you going sort of back to the beginning, but on the other hand, it matured me enough to know that, where my place was and where I stood and, what my job was.
Mm. So I wanted to first interview you based off of a post that you made on TikTok. And I'll add it in here.
Some people work 9 to 5. Some people work night shift. I work all shifts. Okay, so I represent the hustlers. And it's important I say that. The reason why I say that is because I want to let the young world know, go hard. When times get hard, go harder. When times get great, go even fucking harder.
Yeah.
You took a picture of some recliners and you were talking specifically to the rookies and you said, stay out of these. and you had, I believe it was like 8 or 9 different pictures. Do you remember much of what you posted on that? And if you do, can you go over them and can you kind of go into detail about why you believe these things?
Yeah. So, without dragging this on too long,
Please
so
feel
to
free.
speak,
Go ahead.
if you look at my TikTok page, I'm not some big superstar on TikTok,
No,
right? But
neither
I
am
found
I.
myself scrolling one day, where this lady jumps up on the screen at you and she's like, "Hey, you've been scrolling too long," and I thought, man, I've got to have something better to do with my time, right? And so I just kind of told my wife, I said, I'm not going to scroll, social media anymore. So I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to find something else better to do with my time. And ironic as it might be, I said, I'm going to document that and put it on social media, right? And so that gained a little bit of traction. And then, a couple people started obviously paying attention to the fire department side. And so as I was thinking about some ideas, it just so happened that our truck company was assigned the next day to go out and work with new hires, because the first thing you have to do on our physical agility test is climb a 100-foot ladder at 75 degrees, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, I think I'm just going to throw a little bonus episode out there, basically, or a bonus video that says, as a rookie, going back to my time as a rookie, here are just some important things that I'm going to say, and you can take them or leave them. And I don't know if you read any of the comments on there, but some people were taking them and some people weren't all that excited about them. But
Yeah.
So let me first of all say this: I didn't post anything in that video that I myself didn't do as a rookie and that I didn't find value in. So I don't want to be the person that says, don't sit in these recliners as a rookie if I laid my ass in those recliners as a rookie.
Exactly.
Okay. So,
which makes you a valid captain today because you are willing to do what you told your men to do.
That's right. Right. And I want people to understand that. And look, it's not for everybody, right? I mean, if your captain feels different or your company officer feels different, then by all means. This was just for me. These were tips that helped me out. So, when you start your rookie year, I mean, there are so many things to learn. And if you work a 24-hour shift, 48-hour shift, doesn't really matter. But there's so many things to learn, and that sitting in that recliner is probably not one of those things. If you have time to sit in that recliner, and you got time to probably figure out something else that you should be doing. That was always my mentality, to the point actually where the guys and gals that were around me, they would say, man, come on, you can sit in a recliner. You've been up all day. You've been studying that district. You've been, working outside, whatever the case may be. Come on, sit down. And I just thought, this is just not for me. I haven't earned it. I can find something better to do with my time. And, also some of the other things that I put in there were do the dishes. This is your job. Mm-hmm. Make coffee. This is your job. Mm-hmm. If don't walk past a problem that you can solve. That's your job. And when I say that's your job, there are some people who don't take that very well. But to me, that's it, right? Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean you're valued any less than any other member of the crew. That doesn't mean you're valued any less as a person. But that means that's your job. It's my job to get in every morning and do the paperwork. It's my job to fill out run reports after the runs are done. These sort of things,
that's considered
right?
The buy-in. When you're
that's
the
right.
new guy, that's called the buy-in. What skin do you have in the game to do this job?
Right. And when I was a rookie, again, I was 32 years old. I had never drank coffee before in my life. I wasn't a coffee drinker. I knew how to make it because my dad was a coffee maker. But my captain brought me in the kitchen and she said, Hammond, there's a coffee pot. Don't ever let it run dry. Cool. Got it. So I asked somebody there, someone around me, how do you all make the coffee here? Tell me how to do it. I know how to make coffee. I just want to know how she drinks it. I want to know how you drink it. The other captains drink it. And I made coffee and I never let it run out. I mean, that was my job, right?
Never letting another person beat you to the phone.
That's right. When that phone rings, you better fight like hell to be the first one to get to it. It's your job. Answer the phone and know the script when you answer the phone, right?
Yeah. Yep. Sound professional.
Right. And hopefully what that does is it sets a groundwork for, I'm willing to serve people, not just this community, but I'm willing to serve those around me. I'm willing to do these things. I'm willing to earn that spot where I fit in. And then but it teaches you something too. in a combined 29 plus years in the fire service, the phone hasn't quit ringing. It's still going to ring, and coffee still has to be made.
And it may be a BS phone call too. It could be a
Sure.
solicitor. It could be someone just asking a question in the community, but that is your job. Your job is to serve the community. And if they called up just to say, "Hey, I was wanting to know if I could burn today," or whatever it may be, okay, it may be annoying to you, but that is your job.
That's right. So that was what that was about. Is as I reflect back on these new hires coming in the job here, just some things I wish that all rookies would know coming in, and I wish they would all be passionate about, because I've had a young firefighter that was on the job for a month look me right in the face as a captain and say, "It's not my job to make coffee. I don't drink coffee," and it just doesn't sit very well.
So what do you do in that situation when you have a rookie tell you as a captain that they're not going to do that?
Well, first I really try to logically say, okay, I don't understand why you feel that way, but from my perspective, here's why I think it is your job. And here's why I think these lessons are important for you to learn right now, right? But then I'm going to probably reach out to that person's company officer and say, "Hey, I had this conversation with your rookie, just so you know that," right? I believe that's important. And I believe as a captain, if this person's working over here for me, or if this person's coming off shift, or whatever the case may be, that I have a responsibility as a captain to speak with them, teach them, help them, whatever the case may be. But I also want to reach out to their company officer and say, "I did this, I said this. I'm not trying to go against you or anything, but I'm just trying to pass on what I feel like, their responsibility should be." And some people take that and some people don't, and that's okay. But nonetheless, hopefully that person at some point will go, "Man, maybe it is my job."
So that makes a good point. Let's just clarify the air. Is it expected that just because I'm in Oklahoma, I'm just slightly to the east of you, or west of you, sorry. Maybe that's how it is here, but do you think that might be the same thing, say, in Washington? Should it be?
I would hope so. Now, maybe not specific to coffee, right? But there has to be a hierarchy, right? There has to be rank, and there has to be responsibilities that certain people do and certain people don't do. And that's not to prove that you're better than someone else or you're more important than someone else, but it's to make sure all the tasks get done, right? If you relate this in a big picture to the ICS system, right? The incident commander is not going to, pull the line off the truck, right? That's someone else's responsibility. And so if the incident commander could do everything on the fire scene, then he wouldn't need anyone else. He or she wouldn't need anyone else. It's the same way at a firehouse. That's your house. And if your responsibility as a company officer is to do these things, then someone else's responsibility is to do these things. Somebody has to make the coffee. Somebody has to clean the bathrooms. Somebody has to sweep them off the floor. That doesn't mean the captain's too good to do it, but everybody has a responsibility. And that's part of your rookie year, is establishing what is my responsibility, and am I doing it or am I not doing it?
Okay, so, and then to clarify even further, is that during business hours, like from, say, 7 to 5, or is that the entire 24 or 48-hour shift?
Well, since you're asking me, I'm going to give you my opinion, but to me, that's the entire 24-hour shift, right? So when I was a rookie, our bedtime was 9 o'clock. That was the time we were allowed to go to bed, right? So at 9 o'clock, I went to bed, right? But until 9 o'clock, if there were dishes in the sink, I washed them. I made sure they were done. If there were towels in the washer or the dryer before I went to bed at 9 o'clock, I made sure they were either started or they were finished, put up, whatever the case may be. Because guess what? At 9:45, after everybody goes to bed and the bell hits, and it's a working fire or whatever the case may be, and we need to come back and take showers, there should probably be some towels ready for that, right? And if there's not, it's going to be my ass that's on the line. So I just figure that's 24 hours, right? Now, the bigger picture of all of that is when someone's told to do something or even asked to do something, are they going to do it? Or are they going to look at you in your face and say, "It's not my job. I don't do this. I don't do that." Right? It's bigger than just coffee. It's bigger than making coffee.
So an idea sparked in my head. Should we and I'm going to go because I'm part of a international MC for firefighters. It's called the Red Knights. We generally have, any MC, whether it's a 1%er or not, any MC has what they call a hang around period, to where you got to kind of get used to the culture before you ever decide you're going to take that leap and join. Should we, as a fire nation, incorporate hang around periods to where you're not even considered to apply unless you've hung around and understood the atmosphere that you're getting into?
Well, that's a great idea. And I certainly think it would have a lot of successes. But I'm going to tell you what I think. I think we're as a fire service in general, I think we're really far removed from that. And here's what I mean. Well, let me preface this by saying I have a 15-year-old son. Mm-hmm. The assistant chief here at our local fire department has a son as well who's underage. And those two kids are just eating up the fire service. My son, I would have to pry him away from that fire department with the pry bar sometimes. I hurt his feelings sometimes because he wants to go to the fire station with me. And I'm like, today's not the day, or whatever the case may be. And those guys are learning those lessons, and they're deciding if the fire service is for them. And I think it's amazing. But the reason I think that we're far removed away from it is I don't know that we sell this job like we should before people come on the job. Mm-hmm. We might sell the benefits of it. We might sell the image of it and all of these things. But I don't think we're telling people this is a career. This is a 28 or 30 year career. This is something that you're going to have to start on the bottom of. You're going to have to earn your keep. You're going to have to work hard. I do think that there are citizen academies. There are junior firefighter programs and stuff like that built in. And I think that works. People come around the fire department. They start to do some of that work and go, okay, this is cool. Or, man, I don't want any part of this, right? Mm-hmm. And so I do think those hang around periods would help. When you start making some of those things mandatory like that, though, the argument we've always gotten is, we're going to reduce a field of candidates that is already, greatly reduced. And that's a debate in the fire service right now is, do we need to take people just because we're short, or do we still want to look at people who love the fire service, dedicated to the fire service, meet all the standards of the fire service, and understand what it's about? And it's a line that, some people are on one side of and some people are on the other. But so in that motorcycle club, that hang around period is, do you understand who we are? Do you want to do this? Do you understand what a motorcycle club is? And before you make any of those decisions, we're not even going to consider letting you in. In a fire department, I think that would have a lot of benefits to it, but it would also have a downside to where, you're taking up time with people who may or may not even be ready for this job, and you're not necessarily teaching them. They're just observing things, and they've got to observe the right things and the right people to make this career choice.
And when I say hang around, I don't mean like a year, right? I mean like clinicals. Like when you go to be an EMT, you are required to take 3 12-hour shifts to understand whether or not you're capable of doing your job. And could we do something like that? Could we institute, in order to be able to apply, you have to have completed 2 8-hour shifts as a volunteer?
Oh yeah, I think it's certainly something that you could incorporate. Not only for the experience that you're going to get and how people are going to evaluate how you do the work of a firefighter or an EMS worker, but how you cope with people and adapt with other people that you have to live with. That's something that's very unique about this job is I spend a third of my life with people. And we're going to get into that, I think, in some of the other questions, but mm-hmm. I spend a third of my life living with people. If mm-hmm. I throw my socks on the floor in my bedroom at home, it's something I have to deal with at home. But you do that around, 8 other firefighters, it's a whole different problem, right? So
absolutely,
not only firefighter work, but people should understand, and people should be able to come in and experience living the life of a firefighter who's on shift full time.
Yeah. I think, I mean, there's 3 shifts, ABC crews on a normal area, right? I don't think it's too wrong to say, hey, you've got to have at least 4 hours per shift so they can fill you out and find out who you are. And maybe 4 hours isn't long enough, but that's not much to ask someone to say, hey, I mean, is this what you want to do?
All right. I agree.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go into another question here. You talk a lot about building a strong crew culture while still embracing humor and tradition. What does a healthy firehouse culture look like to you, and what are some non-negotiables that you reinforce as a captain?
A strong, a healthy culture looks like people who come together, understand one another, uh, understand that you all serve the same purpose, although you might go about it in different ways and come from different backgrounds and have different experiences. But at the end of the day, you come together. That's what it's like. I don't think it would take many people very long to walk in a firehouse, most firehouses, and just observe and say, these crew members have a culture of unity or have a culture of enjoyment and laughter and passion or hard work and training, or there's a toxic culture in this firehouse. So, what constitutes a strong culture is going to be open communications. It's going to be understanding, and it's going to be, valuing each other, right? I talked earlier about knowing your place, right? Rookies, firefighters, drivers, lieutenants, engineers, captains, whatever, your rank structure is. But I also understand and know that everybody on my crew and the other crews in our firehouse are people and they're individuals and they bring value to the crew. And you have to embrace that as a crew for there to be a strong culture. Everybody has to want the others to be a part of it, and everybody has to feel like they are a part of it to some degree. There's several non-negotiables, for me as a captain, but I'm going to just give you the first one that I think is important, and I think it's something that's not as valued today in the fire service as it always has been. I'm glad I was taught this, and I'm glad that the people around me accept it. But eating your meals together at the fire table, at the kitchen table, it's not negotiable for me. I don't want to work, for crews that don't want to come together and eat together, and I certainly don't want to be a part of a firehouse where, for whatever reason, that's a problem and it can't happen.
Yeah.
Since the day I come on the job, I've been fortunate enough to work with people who eat breakfast together and, eat dinner together. And I can tell you what that brings to a firehouse that to me is important. And that is a place to gather and talk. Skills like cooking. If anybody from my crew is either watching this or will watch it, they're going to find that humorous for a lot of different reasons. But
of course, busting the balls,
So, but it also gives you a good beginning to your shift, and it also brings things together at the end. So no matter what you're doing during the day, when you all come together at night, for supper, that's kind of okay, like we made it through the day. We're getting ready to move into the night, but we're all here together. And there's a lot of inappropriate stuff said at the kitchen table. I've heard it said there's no rank at the kitchen table, but I'm fortunate enough to work in a battalion house. So we have an engine company and a truck company, and then our battalion chief is in the house too. And, every day she's there with us at the kitchen table, and she eats breakfast, she eats dinner with us, and we all come together and eat. And that, can bring some obstacles if you have picky eaters or whatever the case may be, but it's not necessarily about the food. It's just about coming together and eating together. I know some people that are close to me who say, well, you don't eat together. I go to the Dollar General and grab me something or whatever the case may be. And to me, it just, that just sends a message of just go do your own thing. But, we have to come together at some point when there's an emergency, and you have to feel like that's absolutely going to be successful when it does that. And you can tell a lot from the kitchen table.
How am I supposed to trust you to pull me out of a fire if I go down? if I can't trust you to eat with me?
Right. And if I can't trust you to talk to me and listen to me or whatever the case may be, if we're not coming together as a crew ever, then when we do come together, how's that going to be? How's that going to look?
I tell everybody that I work with, I'm annoying. I talk a lot, have ADHD. There's a lot of reasons why you may not like me, and that's fine. I'm going to be loyal to you no matter what until you give me a reason not to be. That's mainly on the EMS truck just because, I'm not full-time fire, but I am paid part-time EMS. So like when I work with my crew, it's like, yeah, you've got complete loyalty from me. I don't care if you tell everybody you hate me, you don't like me, I'm a creep, whatever. I'm here and I'm not going away. And if something happens to you, I'll be the first one to help you out.
Right.
Yeah. You serve as a truck company captain in a large municipal system, but also as a chief in a small hometown volunteer department. What are the biggest differences in the leaderships between the two worlds, and what lessons transfer across both?
Well, man, when it comes to differences, I think structure is maybe how I can present the biggest difference. And what I mean by that is when we get a run in our career department, I know how many engines are coming. I know how many people those engines have on them. I know the kind of rank and file those engine and truck companies have on it. Every seat has their own responsibilities, so to speak, and so there's just more structure. On a volunteer department, if it's a structure fire at 7:30 on a Tuesday morning, there may be 3 people that are coming to your fire station who are available to help. There may be 18 people, but it might take 3 or 4, automatic aid departments to get that. And so that sort of structure is not there. So you really have to understand who you've got, who's coming, what their pros and cons are, what their strengths and weaknesses are, who's coming to help, all of those things. And you got to really make some decisions on the fly. And as a 3-year firefighter on a career department, the chances of you showing up, being the only person there, having to take command and ask for help and all of these things are very, very slim. On a volunteer department, it may very well happen. So those, that's the biggest difference, but there are a lot of the same things as far as, service to the community and service to one another. Everybody on that volunteer fire department has another job. Some of them are full-time in EMS firefighting. Some of them are not. So you have to take people from all over the place and all different kind of skill sets and say, what level of training do you have? What level of training do you need? How can you help? How can you not help? And let's just make the most of that. Mm-hmm. And people don't volunteer like they used to.
That's for sure.
We're still considered a volunteer here in this community, but we make, 12 to 1,300 runs a year between medical and fire related runs. And we have a couple of members on shift during the day, and then, and we're able to actually pay our volunteers on a per call or per incident basis. So those are all pluses, but, some volunteer departments, it's just like, who can come and help us, and what can we do, and what can we bring to the table? And so you really have to make some hard choices about, what happens and how you can serve when those things are an issue. But there are a lot of similarities, and at the end of the day, it's responding to people's emergencies and doing everything that you can do to help out in that emergency.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you need to take a drink of water or something like that, feel free to do so. I'm going to introduce a sponsor real quick for the show.
Sure.
Guys, here at Tales from the Tailboard Podcast, I am sponsored here with End of Shift Apparel. You can go to endofshiftapparel.com and use the code TFTT10 for 10% off your apparel purchases for first-time buyers. End of Shift Apparel makes clothes for first responders, EMS, and they team up with military, and they're doing some really incredible things with people like SAD Team 6, and you should go over there, check them out, read the bios, and be involved where you should get involved. Until then, End of Shift Apparel, thank you for sponsoring the show. Now, you've spoken to legislators and firefighters about a call early on in your career that shook your mental health. Can you walk us through what happened, how you worked through it, and what you'd say to the firefighter who's still carrying something that they haven't processed?
Yeah. This is something that's been, that's obviously growing in interest in the fire service. People are paying a lot more attention to mental health. And I can tell you when I first became a firefighter on the volunteer side and in the career service, I didn't understand that it was a thing. I mean, I think what happens when you're in this industry, especially firefighters and ambulance police workers, people say to you all the time, man, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you see these things. I don't know how you deal with these things. So what that leaves us with is this complex of a superhero, so to speak, and we're just kind of ingrained not to let those things bother us, or that's even sometimes what's expected of us. And for me, that was the case. For a long time, it didn't bother me. I remember on the volunteer fire department we were on, a friend of mine who also served, we were at the kitchen table and we were having steak. We had grilled some steaks and we were having steak, and the coroner from the county called us and said, man, can you guys put on your hazmat suits and come down here? I need some help extracting this body, and I won't get into detail, but it wasn't a pretty sight. Right. And so that happens. We decom, we go back to the kitchen table, and I remember my wife sitting there and she was like, what was that? How'd it go? And I told her, and then we just carried on. We finished eating our steak. She's like, man, this doesn't make any sense to me. I have no idea how you guys can go and do what you just said you went and did and then come back. But I was in that mentality of it was just something you did. And in the fire alarm and the technical industry that I was in with my engineering degree, I was used to taking things that didn't work, understanding how they worked, fixing them, putting them back together, right? Especially fire alarm systems or whatever. That was my specialty, right? And so that was the kind of person I was. It's kind of how my brain worked. What's the root of the problem? Why does it not work? How's it supposed to work? Now I understand how to get it back together, right? Well, when you have an incident where your brain and your mind can no longer do those things, that's what reshapes you. And I was sitting on my porch one day having coffee. I was off duty. It was, in my hometown, and it wasn't even the tones that went off got my attention. It was someone screaming. I could hear them. They were close enough to our home where I could hear them. And without going into too much detail about the specifics of the call, at the end of the day, two very, very young children under the age of 2 ended up in a swimming pool, and we couldn't save them. And one of these young children was the grandson of a friend of mine. And when the emergency started, I just headed to the call, right? Just like anything else. Let's go. When it was over, I was a different person. I came home. If my wife's listening, I would have to apologize if for whatever reason I get emotional, but it happens.
No, you're more than welcome. You feel free to be as candid as possible.
I came home and I sat in my driveway in my truck, and I couldn't get out. And I didn't know why I couldn't get out. And I just didn't understand. I just could not process this. My brain was like, okay, what should have happened? What was normal? What mistakes were made? Why is it broken? Well, there weren't many mistakes made, and there wasn't many things that were broken. And I just couldn't do it. I just could not put all of this together. And I sat in that truck, and I don't know how long I sat there, but it was long enough where she went looking for me. She wasn't exactly sure where I was, and ultimately she came and she sat in the truck with me. And although I'd never been through something like this, and although I don't know that she had ever seen me like this, she knew right away something wasn't right. And so she sat there with me, and I had to prepare myself to go into my house and see my kids. And I just couldn't do it. I mean, I just couldn't make myself do it. And my kids were young too. And my friends' kids were young. And man, again, I can't even explain why I felt the way I did, looking back on it, but I just couldn't do it. I mean, it just broke me. Something broke inside. And, but once I did, and I started to walk down this path of, oh man, I feel different now. Like I turned my pager off, and I'm talking within the span of 24, 48 hours. I mean, I didn't want anything to do with any of this anymore. I reached out to a couple of people that I knew, my captain at the time, and couldn't say the words, like couldn't even say what happened. Like I just couldn't speak about it. But I was looking for, what do I do with this? How do I handle this? And to be frank, the people that were around me didn't know the answer to that question, just like I did, or I didn't. And that went on for probably far too long. I went back to work at my career department, although I didn't want to. And the people at my career firehouse knew right away something was not right with me, had no idea what it was or how they went about handling it, right? The same way I don't think the fire service for years and years and years taught people how to deal with their own emotions. I also don't think that we taught people or trained people or readied people to hear someone else look to them and say, this is a problem for me, right? And that was what I understood. I was a captain at the time with my volunteer department. I felt as a leader, it was not okay for me to go to someone and say, I'm not okay. This is a problem for me. At the career department, I didn't feel like what I did on my volunteer department anyone wanted to hear about. I was nervous and scared about even bringing this up, and it really went on for, I don't know, I would say probably a good solid month or 2 months where I struggled in life. I mean, I did not understand where my place was, all of these things. And when I would kind of start to feel better about it, I would think about the families and the kids and all the other responders. And I was just not processing things very well at all. I could not pull myself back to a place where I went, okay, this is how it should be, and this is where it went wrong. Just couldn't do it. And I'm gonna come back to the end of that in just a second. But now that I understand things better than I did then, and I know that we have a problem in EMS, fire, police, nurses, military. We have a problem, and I think there's some good steps that are being taken. I think there's some good people taking these steps, but we've got some work to do. And so they were working on some legislation here in our state about mental health, and there was some people fighting this legislation that I never dreamed would fight it. In my opinion, it was like, hey, man, first responders are broken. Let's help them. Let's prevent this stuff from even happening. All of these things, but there was some people fighting this, and so I got a chance to go and speak to the legislators. And this is the analogy that I use, and I hope it makes sense to your viewers and some other people who are watching this. But when I was in probationary school, when I was a rookie, and I was going through the fire academy at the municipal department, I had an accident where my fingers got caught in a forcible entry prop, and it sliced both of my fingers on one of my hands to the point where it was a pretty severe emergency. I had to be taken to the hospital, all of these things, right? So when it happened, there were immediately people around me who saw it was an emergency and took steps to fix it. They put pressure on my fingers. They wrapped them, all of the things you do for bleeding control, right? They were very trained to do it. The captains out at the training department automatically took me to the emergency room. They knew the paperwork to fill out. They knew the company nurse number to call, all of these things. In the days behind that, they, had talked about maybe internal stitches, maybe external, all of these things, maybe even a surgery on my finger if one of the veins was cut, right? In my mind, I just went with it. Those people who were treating me knew what they were talking about. I knew the city was going to take care of it. I knew I wasn't going to see doctor bills. I knew if I had to miss any time from work, it was taken care of. None of those things were an issue with me. My only concern was getting my fingers better and making sure I could do turnout drills, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you have an incident that traumatizes you, in whatever way that it traumatizes you, all of those things are not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed that the people around you are going to recognize that you're in an emergency and they're going to know how to fix it. It's not guaranteed that there's a place that you can go right away to get the help that you need. Mm-hmm. It's not guaranteed that the city and the department is going to support and take care of that. And it's not because they don't want to, but it's just because things weren't in place for that to happen and people didn't understand it. And they didn't treat these types of emergencies the same as physical emergencies. Mm-hmm. And what we were asking those legislators to do is understand that and understand that that's what we want. When there's an incident and a emergency responder gets injured in a way that you can't see physically, we're asking for the same things as if it was a broken leg or 2 cut fingers in rookie school, right? At the time, it just was not a thing. And so I remember, ironically enough, I went to the National Fire Academy. I'd been scheduled for a risk reduction type course up there. And I went up there and we were having dinners and a couple of beers. And I hear this song on the radio. And this song takes me to a place in my head that I did not want to be. And I just got all kinds of emotional. And people that were there with me knew me enough to know this was not, what was happening.
Just before you say that song, there's a comment that said, "You're good. You can say it," but I think it goes with the topic here. Psychological injuries are treated as less than physical emergencies, yet are more common.
That's correct. And if not treated, they could lead to much bigger emergencies, and people don't realize that.
And so you heard this song, and
So it triggered something in me that just made me, feel not okay. And this guy that I was with recognized that. I won't mention his name here. He might not want me to, but I credit this guy for being the one person who led me down the right direction. But he pulled me to the side. He said, I can see that something's not right with you. I've known you from this before. Like, talk to me. What's going on? And so I just kind of started to talk to him about it, started to tell him about it. And something I kept saying to him was, I don't understand why I feel this way. And after about the 3rd time I said it, he stopped me. And this is where things took a turn for the better. He stopped me and he said, why would you ever feel any other way? What you witnessed as a human being was 2 other human beings, very young, precious human beings, lose their life. Why would anyone expect you to feel any differently than you do right now? And I'd never thought about it that way. I thought I was a problem because everyone around me would not feel this way. And we were taught and brought up to not feel this way, right? Shake it off, leave that shit at the door, all of these things, right? But he made me understand it was okay. And he made me understand that what I was feeling was perfectly normal.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't good and we needed to work on it. We needed to fix it. But I wasn't some sort of broken person for feeling that way. I should have felt that way. In fact, you might be a broken person if you don't feel that way. Right. And so that led me, I tell people I had to go a long ways from home to get help. And that was in Baltimore, Maryland. And that's a long ways away from Sheridan, Arkansas. But that's how I had to do it. And from that point forward, I started to look at it a little differently. And I'll say this too. The fact that I had a absolute beautiful family at home and very strong relationship with my wife and my kids, and the fact that at that time in my life, I didn't have any severe financial problems. I wasn't an alcoholic. I didn't have an addiction to any type of drugs, whether it's prescription or otherwise, is the only reason that, there were times I crawled out of the hole that I was in. I can very easily see a situation where somebody's in a position like that and they don't have all of those things around them. and ask themselves, what do I have to live for? And if you don't have things around you to live for, it's a very, very tough decision you have to make. And it's a real thing. There was a city official, and I won't, go into any more detail about what city and who and all of this, but he said something to me, and man, when he said it, it pissed me off. It set me off. And I don't think the guy meant it the way that he said it. And I certainly think it was an ignorant opinion because he wasn't educated on what he was speaking about. But we were talking about suicides in our industry. And unfortunately, both departments that I am with have faced members who have committed suicide. Mm-hmm. And when we were talking about these mental health issues, and I said this to this gentleman, he said, yeah, but what other problems was this guy dealing with? Was he an alcoholic? Was he addicted to drugs? Was he a gambler? Was he divorced from his wife? And all of this. None
of that matters.
Well, you're exactly right. But what I said to him was, I don't know, maybe, but I guarantee you, when we hired him, that's not where he was. Because if someone comes into your firehouse and they're a divorced alcoholic who's got a drug addiction, who gambles away his paycheck, who is looking for any other vice in the world just to survive, you're probably not going to hire him or her. So we don't hire them that way. What makes a person become that? And I'll tell you what it is. It is responding to incidents on your job, not understanding how to process them, coming home and not being the same person around your family, not being able to share those things with your family. So then you grow apart from your spouse and from your kids, and that could very well lead to divorce. And you become someone that your closest friends around you don't like anymore, which could lead to broken relationships. And then you have to start coping with that and going, well, I don't want to be me, right? So maybe I'm going to run out and, handle this gambling addiction. I visit the casino every couple of weeks. And so I have to reassure my wife all the time that that's not a problem. But you start to find these vices that take you away from the reality because you don't want to face it. And that leads to marital issues. It leads to relationship issues. It leads to some other sort of addictions and vices, whether it be drugs or alcohol, and it leads you to be a person that all of a sudden no one around you likes anymore. But guess what? That started somewhere, and I guarantee you it didn't start before we hired this person. So we in this service, in this industry, we have a responsibility to understand who people are and help them deal with changes that come in their life that will affect them negatively. And it all goes back to how do we handle the things that we do and the things that we see, along with all of the other things in our life. People go to work on 8 to 5 jobs, Monday through Friday. They have problems in their life, right? And it could be problems with work, relationships, whatever the case may be. And how they handle those problems, if they brought those problems to work and handled them like that, or if that job was causing them 90% of the problems that they had, somebody would be on board to fix that. And we have to do it in this industry too. So all that to say, first of all, there's a lot of good work being done. Second of all, if you're hanging on to something, just understand that your cup can only hold so much water before it overflows. And it could be half of a cup of water that's poured in that glass at one time, or it could be a drop here and a drop there and a drop here and a drop there. And one simple drop's all it needs to overflow. And when it happens, and if it happens, just understand you're absolutely perfectly normal for, thinking about it and understanding it and maybe not knowing how to deal with it. But there are, resources out there. If the people around you don't know how to help you, I promise you they want to. They may not know how. There are resources out there. Don't carry it with you. Talk to the people that are around you, whether it's at home or at work, because they want to help you and they don't want to see you become a person that you don't want to be.
100%. Man, that's heavy, heavy, heavy topics. And I love it. I love being able to get into and talk about those situations because they need to be talked about. Now, I'm gonna get on to another question, but I did want to ask you a question based off of your being you believe in God, Jesus Christ, right? Okay.
I do.
So,
Yeah.
and I do as well. Has a lot of people might say something along the lines of, well, suicide is against God. Da 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 da. You name it. They're going to go on and on and on and on. Does being in our profession, and this is off script. This isn't even in my questions. This is something I came up with. Does being in our profession change how you feel about that?
No, it doesn't. But here's how I feel about it. There's a lot as a 45-year-old man that I do every morning after I get up that Jesus himself probably wouldn't be happy with. Okay.
Amen to that.
If the conversation about suicide leads to whether or not Jesus thinks it's right or wrong, we've missed a whole lot in between there. Okay. I know that I'm absolutely the furthest thing from perfect that, anybody will probably find. Um, in fact, I spoke to my son's high school football team when they were seniors in high school. This has been a couple of years ago. And I love Jesus, but I cuss too. So you have to understand that. But I was speaking to them and I talked about David and Goliath in this story. And one of the things that's often left out of this story is how much preparation David had spent serving the Lord prior to his battle with Goliath. So I won't get into all of that, but that's what we were speaking about. Well, somewhere in this conversation, I said the word ass. I said, how badass this is, or whatever the case may be. And someone brought it to my attention that I'd done that while speaking about this very same topic too. But it just goes to show you I'm not perfect. I believe that I have a responsibility to have a relationship with Christ. I believe everyone should have that responsibility. I believe everyone should try every day to be the kind of person who ultimately, when you're judged, you're allowed into heaven if that's where you want to be, because there's only one other option. I don't want to be there. But I think that's just an easy thing for people to say when it comes to suicide, because it's hard to process. And it's just a point people make to talk about it in a religious way. This industry has absolutely changed my mind about suicide. I understand it now. I'm certainly not condoning it, but what I am saying is I'd never dreamed I would understand or know anything about what would want to make a person in their own life. But I think in order to prevent those things from happening, we better start understanding that. And we better start realizing that people will get to that point, and they have gotten to that point. And we have to help them stop getting to that point. And we have to know that when they are at that point, we have to help them. Absolutely. No matter what we feel, we have to help them get away from that point, because we need them here tomorrow. They may not know it. They may look around them and say, my family doesn't love me. I have this, I owe this much money and all of that. But I guarantee you, if those people were to have an opinion about it, they would tell you the life is valuable. We need you around here tomorrow. That's what we have to stay focused on, And
commented, you can empathize with something without having to understand it.
That's right. Yeah, I'm going to different perspective, different type of situation, but I'm just going to present it to you like this too. I would absolutely never in a million years wake up in the middle of the night with a toothache and call 911. Just wouldn't do it. Okay. But I have responded to calls like that, and I look around and I understand where this person is and who they have or who they don't have and what they've gone through and what they haven't. And I go, man, I didn't want to come here for this. but I know enough now to understand why you felt the need to call.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't think that's a good use of the 911 system, but when you see things like that, you can put yourself in that situation and go, wow, what would I do if I was in this situation?
Mm-hmm.
What would I do if I was left no other choice? Right?
100%. So I gotta get my battery pack for the charger here, so I'm gonna step away for just a second. In the meantime, feel free to step away. Do whatever you need to do. It only take about a minute or so.
It's important that we look out for each other. It's important that we look out for ourselves. And it's important that we keep open line of communication with people around us. I've always told my kids they can come to me at any point in time that they need to, and they can talk to me about anything that they want to talk about. And at that point, uh, I may not necessarily be their father. I might just be a friend, or I might just be someone with advice, but I don't ever want them to. I read something one time that said, I never want my kids to do something or to find themselves in a situation and say, I'm scared to death of my dad. I want people to, I want these boys to find themselves in a situation and say, I'm calling my dad. I want my dad to be the person that I call. And we have to have that relationship with other people in our lives too, where it's completely okay at any point in time to just bring something up and talk about it and forget everything else. And, and just get right down to what's the problem and how do we fix it.
100%. Couldn't agree more. So let's get into the tornado story. In March 2023, your 9-person crew took a direct hit from an EF4 tornado. What do you remember most about that moment, and how did that experience permanently reshape your perspective on the job and going home?
Well, I can tell you it will always be one of the worst days in my career, even though as I look back on it, I can understand how it could have been a lot worse. Thankfully, it was not that way. But what I remember most about it was absolutely how fast the situation we were in turned from, a normal shift to we're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't something we were prepared for. We're prepared to respond to emergencies. We're not prepared to become the emergency. Leading into this day, we knew there was a potential for, some pretty severe weather. In fact, they had hyped it up to the point where we were taking it seriously. It wasn't just another, day in the neighborhood. We understood there was some weather coming in, and we understood we were probably going to have some work to do. As the day progressed, things started, really looking serious in our area. And I know you can relate to this because you're in Oklahoma, but what does, any redneck from the southern part of the country do when they think there's a tornado somewhere around?
Grab a beer, go outside, watch it.
That's right. We go outside and we watch it. And we were the same. I mean, our crews were understanding of what was happening, but we went outside and we started looking at the weather and how it was changing and all of this. And
it turns
as
real
the crow
green
flies,
real fast.
What's that?
It turns green real fast.
Yeah, green real fast. As it turns out, as the crow flies, about a mile or a mile and a half from us, this tornado was forming. We didn't know this. Once we knew it did, and we have some footage from this where one of our crew members actually said, it's going to go to the west of us. We're about to have to go to work. And what we didn't realize at that moment was what we saw to the west of us was just debris. We were right in the middle of this storm. And so our, battalion chief, very explicitly explained to us we probably needed to take cover because we're in a shit storm. And I mean, no sooner than we got the door shut in the office we took shelter in, this building started to come apart around us. And it was the loudest, most hectic, probably 90 seconds of my life. That was as long as it lasted. And when we came out of that room, it was unbelievable. Our building had fallen in. everything outside was completely destroyed. Every vehicle in the parking lot was destroyed. I mean, it was just absolute devastation in such a short amount of time. And instinct took over all of us, and we immediately started to say, well, okay, let's go to work. What do we have to do? Where do we need to go? What's the next steps? Our fire trucks were, out of service. Our building was tore up. We couldn't get the doors open. Part of the building had collapsed on one of the trucks. So, we grabbed whatever gear we could, whatever tools we had, and we started to go to work. The people that were in our neighborhood, where do you go when there's an emergency and you need something? You go to the firehouse. So not only, were we pretty much out of commission, but people were coming to us and they needed help. And we took kind of an assessment of, how are we as people? What do we have to work with? And then let's go help somebody else, Mm-hmm. The storm eventually calmed, and fortunately, we dealt with some minor issues. We actually dealt with another little small storm that came in behind that, we didn't have any fatalities. We didn't have any firefighters that were hurt. We had a lot of firefighters in our city that were now coming to our aid and our rescue, even though they had their own emergencies to deal with because of this tornado. And so, from a professional standpoint, what it taught me was be ready for the unexpected, right? Mm-hmm. And thankfully, the crew members who were at our station that day were, professional enough and brave enough to say, we got to go do our job. This ain't going to stop us. We've got to go do our job. In fact, the fire department came to us later and they said, the storm's kind of calmed down. Some people have come in. We're having to move you to another station, obviously, in a different area. And we want you guys to go home and be with your families. And, most of us, just like anybody else, said, man, we got work to do. We got a job to do. We don't want to abandon anybody. I mean, they had to force us basically to leave and to go home.
You could have been on your 23rd hour and something like that happens and people are going to stay for the next 3 days.
Right. Well, part of this that didn't go certainly, without being noticed, but my wife knew the weather was coming in as well. So she picks up the phone. She FaceTimes me prior to the tornado. And we're talking, and I said, things are getting bad here. And she said, no, Ben, they are bad. Like, I'm watching the weather. There's a tornado. It's coming right for you. It just formed. You guys have to go somewhere. And about the time you could start to hear some commotion in the background, I lose the call. No, my wife, she and I get disconnected. Well, two minutes later or whatever, I text her and I said, we're fine, but our station took a direct hit and we're going to work. Well, she didn't get that message. So you can imagine, I don't know what your family status is. I don't know what, whoever's listening, I don't know, if they have a spouse, kids or whatever, but you can imagine how that would feel to somebody when the call gets disconnected. You were already afraid there was a tornado coming at them, and now you haven't heard from them and you can't get to them. You can't reach them. And then the media starts reporting that, a fire station in the city was directly hit by this tornado. Mm-hmm. My wife, to say she was beside herself was probably an understatement. I don't want to speak for her, but I think probably for the first time in my career, she probably felt like I was dead. And I cannot, I can't ever imagine that. So when this was over, and we went home, it provides a completely different perspective. But all of our I'm going to take some heat for sharing this, but it's okay. We took some heat when it happened too, but and I'll talk more about this in a minute if you want me to, but there's some internal things within the fire department that after a disaster like this takes place, and it ain't always good. And we dealt with that, but our crew was stronger than we ever were. In fact, they wanted to separate us and put us at different stations, and we really fought against that. And we became a closer crew. And our mascot, if you will, or station, mascot is Popeye, and that's on our patch and all of these things. And so we all decided, I don't know if you can see this or not, but we all decided to get these Popeye tattoos on our forearms or somewhere on our body anyway. And it has the date of the tornado. And we just kind of, after it was all over, I kind of made a joke to one of the other guys and said, man, we need to get some ink to remember this day by, So we did. But when I came home that night, my wife didn't know I was coming home. She was over some friends of ours' house, and, we had talked since then, but they had been just kind of helping her out. And some friends came up to the city and started helping us out. And it was a good moment for everybody. But at the same time, when I came home, and I never wore my uniform home, it was just something I didn't do. But in this particular instance, I didn't have a choice. All the rest of our stuff was tore up or gone or wherever it was, So a friend of ours drove me home. And when I got out of the truck, my wife came and she ran up to me and she grabbed hold of me and hugged me and she wouldn't let go. And, in that moment, I knew everything was going to be all right. But I also completely learned a different perspective on the value of coming home. And the value of seeing people that for a moment in time you thought you might not ever see again. And what I needed to do as a husband and a father to make sure that I never put my family in that situation again, and that I always come home to get that hug.
Well, if you ever had any doubt that they didn't love you, it was smashed in.
Yeah, no doubt about it. A friend, the person's house that we were at, captured this moment when she ran up and hugged me. And so much so that I tattooed the entire picture on my other arm.
That's awesome.
And I can't tell you the number of times I've looked at it since then and had these conversations with my wife and kids that says this picture, every time I see it on my arm, it reminds me. And it doesn't have to be a tragic situation, right? It could be that me and my wife are in a piddly argument, which happens sometimes. And it just reminds me the value of standing on that grass and having that house in the background and making sure that we all make it home. My crew, our team, and that we make it home. And we're a person when we get home that the people we love expect us to be. So anytime you have a disaster like that, it always has a way of bringing people together. So our crew is stronger for it. I am stronger as a man for it. Hopefully my family, ended up getting some good out of that, but I never want to have to go through something like that again to learn those type of lessons.
Oh, yeah. So we got 5 questions left. However, we've been going at this for about an hour and a half almost. I'm cool with going on. I do have 5 rapid fire questions for you. But out of those last 5 questions, I'll just read the first parts of them. Tell me if there's anyone that you want to hit while we're still here. Serving on the boards and associations, the 3 of your sons in the fire service, mentioning that the hardest stories have humorous sides. Most people come from the fire service into prevention, and you've lived your rookie year as an older adult. Any of those questions you really, really want to hit?
There's a lot I think that people can probably take away from most of those situations, but as it relates to my life and what's important to me, especially after some recent events in our family, the fact that 3 of my sons have an interest in the fire service is probably the most important if we want to talk about that.
Okay, that's one I really did want to get to. I'm not saying we can't do them. We can do them. It's just going to be a super long episode if you want to do that. I'm completely cool with that. Just want to make sure that you're game for time.
Well, how do you feel about, knocking that one out and some of those rapid fire questions? And then, if your viewers and some other people want to continue to hear us babble about some of this stuff, maybe we can do this again.
Cool. Let's do that. And then maybe we can do like sit afterwards or whatever we got to do. We can always come back and do a second episode anytime. You're welcome to come on and talk about anything you want. If there's an event that pops up and you're like, hey, I want to talk about this. Okay, cool. Then let's hop on an episode. Let's talk about it, break it down, whatever you got to do.
Sure.
But on that note, 3 of your 4 sons are pursuing the fire service career. What does mentorship mean to you, both at home and in the firehouse? And what are you hoping that the next generation carries forward?
Um, well, I'll give you everybody, I guess, a little bit of a background to that. My oldest son is 21, and he is working on his third year in the career fire service. So he, started out kind of volunteering as soon as he could, and then pursued it as a career. So it makes me extremely proud as his father, and but also makes it extremely important that I help mold and shape him in both areas of his life and be there for him in that area as well. My second son, he is in college. He's in the second year of college, and he's just, started volunteering here when he's home, and is really starting to develop a passion for service to others. And, my third son, he's 15. We talked about him a little bit earlier. He is a nut job as it relates to the fire service. He loves everything about it, and I couldn't be happier for him. So it brings up a couple of important items about mentorship and about, what I would like to see these young men become, not only as their father, but in the fire service. And first of all, I want my name and their name to be one in the fire service that people can respect, and that people, when they hear it and when they see it, they have an expectation for that name, and they have an expectation for, the lineage there, and that these guys want to meet that, that it ain't just about helping others, but that's important. It ain't just about having some red light on your POV. It's about doing a job and trying to do it well and having manners. And one of the greatest compliments I've received as a parent is for someone to say, I ran into your son the other day, and that is a well-mannered young man. He helped out. He said, yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Whatever. You and your wife are doing a good job raising him, and that's just amazing to hear as a parent.
I love
Well, in the fire service, that's what I want too.
Yeah.
I want somebody to, when I see them, say, I worked with your son over there in this city, or I had him in this class, and man, like, dude was squared away. And if he wasn't, he asked about it, and he just seems to be giving it everything he's got.
Mm-hmm. And not to mention your crew. When they say that about your crew too, not just your sons, even that is like almost like father, like son. You got a young rookie in there that's obviously not your son, but he kills it and does a hell of a job. And you hear about it, you're like, hey, that's what I want from you. You're going to go far in this department because you're representing us the way you should be.
Right. Absolutely.
Now, do you play coach's kid with your kids? Like when I say, like, so do they get you special treatment because they're Chiefs dad?
No, absolutely not. In fact, it's probably like having a son who's the starting quarterback. You're going to be harder on him than you are anybody else on the team. I have a different expectation for him than I would anybody else. So now everybody doesn't necessarily see it that way. You can look back from a distance and say that's special treatment, but it's not. And if it is, I'm okay with it.
Well, hell, if you want me to ride your ass a little harder, won't you just say something?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I can do that too. Yeah. What you don't see is me tearing his ass up after the call all the way home, I can tell you this. I have tried to teach my sons and show them that the people you have in your life are extremely important. Good and bad, to be honest with you, meaning if you take lessons from someone that you were around and you didn't like anything they were doing, that's good. But more importantly, the people that you have in your life who you can read about, who you can watch and say, I want to be like that guy or that gal, and you can take lessons from and have those mentors, the better off you're going to be. Those people have made a lot of mistakes in their life. And if I can learn from those people's mistakes, I don't have to make them on my own, I'm going to be better off.
Mm-hmm.
So having mentors that you look up to and can relate to, if you could see either side of what's behind me, they're bookshelves and they're full of books, and not only just fire service books, but leadership books, stories about people who have had successes in their life, stories about people who came from a situation that I come from as a kid who prevailed in life. And some of those people I've had the chance to meet and sit down with and talk to them. And, but just having close people that make a difference in your life is incredibly important. So find those mentors, determine, why they are a mentor. And then hopefully at some point in your life, you can be that person to someone else. I've worked with certain people, and then other people will get around me and say, "Oh, he was trained by this person, by this captain or by this driver or whatever." Because the things I do because I saw someone else who was successful do them.
Mm-hmm.
Years ago, one of my mentors in the fire service, I call him John Wayne Payne. We call him the Duke, but he told me when I was very young, he said the National Fire Academy is free. You can go there and get some of the best, in-class training that in education that you can receive anywhere, and it doesn't cost you anything. Go to the National Fire Academy. Well, I've been to the National Fire Academy 6 or 7 times, and he's not wrong. And so you take those things.
School like we do here in Oklahoma.
I'm sorry?
Do you guys have a state fire school like we do here in Oklahoma? It's like
So we do have a state fire academy. It is not like yours in Oklahoma. It's a free fire academy. You can go from the fire department. They, offer all the fire academy classes. It's just a little bit different. I don't think they go to the same scope as you all do in Oklahoma. I know some folks over there in Oklahoma, and, you guys have some pretty good associations and a pretty good, fire academy as well. And I don't think ours is
off the top of my head, but they always make that not really a joke, but a statement saying that they only name schools after people that died.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
People want to know why, and it's like, well, that's what the school's for. The school's to teach you what not to do.
But I guess the point in all of that is I'm going to try and teach my kids and my sons to follow their passions, no matter what it is. Do everything to the best of your ability, and just understand that no matter what you're doing or where you're going, somebody's watching you. Someone's comparing you to someone else. That person might be me or one of your older brothers. Do the best that you can. Make everyone proud, and at the end of the day, I hope that you made your life better and someone else's better.
I hope so. Man, that's a good episode. I like that so far. 5 random questions for you. These are off the cuff. Don't think about it. Just give me whatever the first thing you think about.
All right.
Truck company. Favorite job on the fireground.
Ventilation.
Least favorite.
Standing by.
I credit EMS Connect with this one. Sean Pitts, he had quoted, I'm going to make it into a sticker, but he said the rear view mirror that says objects in mirror may be closer than they actually are.
Right.
He said he had taken a picture of the fire truck behind him. He said those in the rear view mirror are second on scene.
That's right. You don't ever really want to hear truck 9 just staves. Oh, all right, I'm sure we can do that.
What's one of the firehouse traditions you'll defend with your life?
Oh, I mentioned this earlier, eating together, sitting down at the kitchen table, having meals together, breaking bread together. I think it needs to happen, and I'll defend it forever.
Good. One piece of gear or tool that you're weirdly attracted to or attached to?
Oh, man. I don't know. That's probably a tough one.
Something that nobody else carries that when they look at you, they're like, what the hell?
Yeah. I don't know if there is one, but I can tell you as a young guy, as a firefighter, I was a big fan of what's called the TNT tool. No one else wanted it because it wasn't 6 foot long, and it wasn't, didn't have a axe attached to it like a set of irons, but it was a mallet on one end and a prod on the other. And I'm 6 foot tall, so I had a little bit of height. So I was a big fan of the TNT tool, but
I'll have to look that one up. I don't know that one.
Well, I can tell you this, there's a lot of things to argue about in the fire service. So I have stayed away from fog versus smoothbore, bucket versus stick. I'll let someone else have all of those arguments.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Every tool has its own place. Now, I have not personally had a smoothbore, but if I'm sure by all the fun that everybody else has with them that I would be attracted to the smoothbore. But I can't say that I haven't had it, so I can't say that.
Well, there's definitely a side that you could join, no matter how you feel about it.
Yeah. What's the funniest thing that you've ever seen a rookie do without realizing
Oh Lord. I think you told me before the episode started you took the 18 plus restriction
ahead.
off. So
You're good.
we're going to go back to just.
We're at the end of the episode. Let it fly.
No, so I'll tell you this, and I think every generation has probably said about the generation coming after them that they're worthless and they're not as good as the previous generation. But I can tell you there's a lot of different generational gaps. So I'm at the rookie training center one day, and there's a long hallway. And at the end of this hallway, there's it's a dead end, and there's locker rooms on both sides, men and women. And then there's several offices kind of along the way. Well, I watched this rookie. He's got a mop and a bucket, okay? And he starts on this end of the hallway, and he starts mopping, moving away from himself this way. If you're listening and you're not watching, he's mopping but walking through the same area he just mopped in. Instead of starting at the end, mopping, walking backwards so you don't walk in the area you mop in, he's just mopping right in front of him and just tracking his footprints through what he was mopping. And I thought it was hilarious. So I stopped the kid and I said, man, what are you doing? Like you're mopping this floor and you're just walking through it. And he looked at me, he was white as a ghost, and he said, I've never mopped the floor before. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I take for granted that some people's parents made them sweep and mop the floor, and this kid had never done it. But it was absolutely hilarious. And don't think for 1 second that I didn't let him get all the way to the end of the hallway before I stopped him and said, what are you doing? Because I did. But that was pretty funny. There's some other things we could probably get into at some point. That was pretty funny and kind of unique situation I'd never seen before.
Oh yeah, that's definitely one for when I just pull up a Hangout Live. I'm going to try to invite some people that I've done lives with before and just have them come together and talk about it and just like, hey, how'd you feel about your episode? What are some things you really wanted to talk about that you didn't get to talk about? That kind of stuff later on in life. If you weren't in the firehouse at all, what job do you think you'd be doing today? And don't go back to what you were doing before.
Yeah, don't go back to that.
Let's say you started fire before and you're not doing it today. What is something you would go do today?
So I think in my childhood, I dealt with some issues getting in trouble and all.
Because crayons are tasty.
Oh, that's right, crayons. Yeah. Well, I scored too high on tests to be a cop, so I wouldn't do that.
Oh shit! That's fine.
I'm just kidding. But I dealt with a little bit of trouble when I was a kid, and then had the chance to go back after I became an adult and help deal with some kids who were in trouble as well. And so I think that's probably what I would do. I think I would somehow get involved in youth that were in trouble and really were kind of on their last straw and needed to make a change in life. I'll try to work with those kids to see that change. So
that's good. I like that. So would you think more like therapist wise or counselor wise or what?
Yeah, maybe just mentor, maybe just someone who either spoke to a group of kids or went and got involved with them and just sort of tried to teach them some life lessons and try to paint a different picture for them. Yeah,
I like that. I like it a lot. Well, depends on how much time you got left. I'm going to end the episode, and then after the episode ends, we'll kind of do like a bonus, I guess, that won't make it onto the episode, but we can still talk about those things for the people that were here, kind of like an exclusive. But guys, my name is Isaac Potee. This has been Tales from the Tailboard Podcast. My guest is Ben Hammond. He is a captain out of Arkansas and a chief for his hometown volunteer fire department. He came today with stories that hit hard and stories that were funny and stories that were serious. So, Ben, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you. And for everybody, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to the stories. And as always, be safe out there. And if you're not, I'll see you soon.
Dispatch, medic 1, show medic 1 en route.